After 8 years, the fan-favorite Halo Wars finally gets a sequel, Halo Wars 2. A game praised by its art style and criticized by the microtransaction system. A game that exceeded expectation of longtime Halo fans, and has almost been forgotten since its initial release almost 1 year ago. This is Halo Wars 2, 1 year later. The original Halo Wars is considered as being one of the best made RTS for console by its fluid controls. Halo Wars 2 continues on this trend, giving us a better, more refined control scheme. It was some getting used to, but after a while, I could use them to their full potential. The controls are easy to understand and don't feel clunky. The D-pad functions are really useful for quickly navigating around the map. Halo Wars 2 has its flaws, don't get me wrong, but nothing is big enough to ruin the experience for the player. With 16 heroes to choose from, all with unique abilities and units, every match is different than the last. One game can take just a few minutes or hours to finish, and this all depends on your playstyle, strategies, and decision making. Halo Wars 2 replaces the hero unit powers with a progression tree of leader powers, which reset every match as you need to unlock or upgrade your leader powers, using leader points over the course of the game. This makes the game so much more intense and action-based, as you can rain down bombs on your enemies or call in reinforcements to change the tide of the battle. You need to use these powers at the right time, as they all have cooldown timers. This punishes players for wasting a power at the wrong time. You always need to be on your toes, as there always can appear an army out of the shadows and completely demolish you. Dropping down mines to see your enemies step on them is just so satisfying, as the game has a way of rewarding the player with their strategies, without having the enemy throw their controller out of the window. This game is very accessible. About anyone can boot up the game and enjoy what it has to offer. Not to say it's an easy game, far from it. Matches will leave you utterly destroyed for players that understand the importance of map control in deathmatch, timing your leader powers in rumble, and when to play your cards in blitz. There are many different strategies, and not one will fit the playstyle of everyone. Here come the leaders themselves in, as every one of them fits a certain role. Ginsano is for more offensive attacks that mostly focus on destroying bases. Conley, being the polar opposite, is better at protecting your bases and units, and so on and so forth. Daily and weekly challenges make a glorious return, so players can challenge themselves day after day and week after week. I just wish there would be more variety in them. There are no campaign or firefight challenges, which results in less diversity. What's there is awesome, but I just wish there would be a little more variety in there. Halo Wars 2 introduces a new codex system. What you can read in here, from backstory lore to leaders to all the different units, is simply incredible. You can unlock these Phoenix logs in the campaign, and it is a really nice addition to the game. The UI is all ordered logically and is something different from the vertical layout every Halo game has used before. Blitz is the new game mode Halo Wars 2 introduces, and it's not that great. Every time you play it, you have the same objectives, same goal, and the same time limit. I love the fast-paced gameplay what the other game modes like Domination or Deathmatch just don't provide, as a match will take just about 10 minutes to complete. You don't need to collect resources or slowly build up your army. It's fun, but not something you're going to revisit very often. You need to build up your deck in the main menu so you can fight the enemy with your own playstyle and preferred units and leader powers. This all sounds great, but there's just one problem. It's pay to win. With the introduction of microtransactions, aka blitz packs, in Halo Wars 2, the game gives you a set of cards, and how more duplicates you get of that certain card, the more powerful it gets. So enemy players who have bought some blitz packs here and there will have a distinct advantage over another. In the 1 year time, they didn't fix any of the problems I and many other people had with this game mode. I want to love it, but that's impossible with all these mistakes 343 made. They did add a couple of skins to the blitz map we already had, but it was too little, too late. Halo Wars 2 is a huge step in the right direction for the franchise. The game doesn't only have a compelling story, the game also deviates from the darker tone 343 has tried to capture the last few years. And this makes sense, as the crew of the Spirit of Fire comes from a time where Halo was more of a power fantasy, about an epic journey around the galaxy, and reminds longtime Halo fans that that isn't gone. In a day and age where Halo characters are bland and have no personality that separates them from others, it's good to see characters like Jerome or Douglas represented as these complete badasses everyone looks up to. You can see the relationship between Cutter and Anders, or how Atriox looks down upon his troops, but because Halo Wars 2 is an RTS, the story and cutscenes are never interrupting the gameplay, and have less time to develop its characters. This results in more exposition drops than I would have liked.
The playing field.
Captain, we have Banshees incoming.
Sir, Captain Cutter. Isabel.
Spirit of Fire is under attack from the banished fleet. Return to the ship, now.
Hearing that the Spirit of Fire is under attack by the Enduring Conviction is not satisfying, and then watching this ship battle against the banished cruiser in a cutscene takes away from the intensity. I already feared this before the game was released, as the original suffered from the same problem. Using exposition drops to tell the story is already an overused trend in the gaming industry, and seeing it in Halo Wars 2 is a little disappointing. The game was mainly marketed around the new antagonist, Atriox, but the problem is that he's only about 30 seconds on screen. He's represented as this total badass you're not supposed to mess with, but when his right hand Decimus is more threatening than him, something is not right. Decimus actually fights in battle himself, whereas Atriox doesn't. The same can be said for Isabel. At the start of the game, when you find her, she's scared, saying there's a big threat on the Ark. When you're back on the ship, she begs the crew to run as far and as fast as they can. Isabel began scared, hiding from the giants who looked down upon her, and ended as an own giant herself, destroying a banished base and carrier in the process. But this story arc suffers from the same problems as Atriox's did. Because of the lack of cutscenes in Halo Wars 2, and the gameplay being almost separated from the narrative, these storylines feel kind of rushed. It suffers from the same problems as Halo 5's story did, trying to introduce too many story elements without focusing on one thing at a time. The introduction of the Banished was amazing, as the crew of the Spirit of Fire didn't know if humanity even won, and then to have this splinter group who defied the Covenant being introduced and kicking the Spartans' asses is something we haven't seen in a Halo game before.
The Spartans from Halo Wars, last time you saw them was in the original Halo Wars, just tearing down a pack of elites, and here are those same Spartans being taken apart by one guy. Who is this guy?
There's a distinct difference between the Banished and Covenant, not only in the art style but also in how they fight and their strategies. It's no wonder why we didn't enjoy the Covenant represented in the last few Halo games, as they were just the Covenant 1.5, and although the Banished are just another Covenant with a new art style and setup, it is something new and refreshing. Halo Wars 2 returns something Halo has been missing for a while, the art style. And damn does this game look beautiful, from the green landscapes to the foreigner structures. They all have a unique atmosphere and feeling to them. As soon as you boot up the game, you're greeted with a title screen with the old Bungie Spartan design on the forefront. It has some great music on top of that, but I'll get into that later. It looks like they combined the Bungie art style with that of 343 to create something old and new Halo fans can enjoy, but with their own spin on it.
From a visual standpoint, we wanted to carry over enough of the original Covenant technologies, but at the same time being in your face, more about hard hitting and close combat.
You know what a Wraith does if you've played Halo, but you've never seen a Wraith look like this before.
Lots of layered armor, lots of ramming spikes. something that spoke to a group's sensibilities and aesthetic choices. This is who they're gonna.
The old grunts are back, but also the newer versions taking the place of suicide grunts. The elites look like elites again, not like this monstrosity over here, but has an art style that is unique to this game. Every vehicle and unit is designed perfectly. I could see Marines charging into battle with the Cyclops during the War on Reach, or the Brutes annihilating the humans with a Marauder in the battle on the Ark. Even the Flood from Awakening Nightmare had a filthy but awesome look to it. The remakes had not really captured for me. The Covenant has never looked so intimidating, and I love it. For example, the Scarab. Although I love the Halo 3 design, this is my all-time favorite. The layered armor, mixed with the red paint and bright orange plasma trips, with on top of that, also these robotic screaming sounds, makes for a unit that is intimidating to the player. Halo Wars 2 has unbelievable directing in the cutscenes, and Blur, as always, knocks it out of the park. Though they didn't make as much cutscenes this time. Every scene is made with love and care. They have stunning visuals, amazing voice acting, and a brilliant chemistry to the gameplay. After Halo 5's dull and flashy cutscenes, it's good to see Halo Wars 2 is directed with a little more care and talent. Halo Wars 2 has some interesting ideas with the gameplay. Every unit and counter unit is introduced one by one so the player can learn what counters to use even when they skip the tutorials. On easy, you're not required to build counter units nor play very strategically, but on heroic or legendary, it becomes more of a challenge. Most missions suffer from one problem: repetition. Although there are some exceptions, most missions either have you capturing 3 points on the map or defend a certain spot from the Banished. It's sad to say, but that's the only word I can use: repetition. Even the last 2 missions, which are supposed to be this epic climax, are again a domination mission and a hold and defend level. The game does spice up every once in a while, like for example, the mission 130, but it never results in something truly special. And that, with the story cliffhanger, results in a rather lackluster ending. Did I already tell you about the soundtrack and how fucking great it is? Well, let me tell you that Halo Wars 2 has one of the best soundtracks in the Halo franchise. It looks like they combined a lot of wind instruments, but also synthesizers and violins. The soundtrack has a more in-your-face approach, which fits perfectly with the more tougher art style of the Banished. It's just a shame that the soundtrack wasn't used as often in the campaign. The menu screen has some beautiful music, and every time I boot up the game, I hear that heartwarming piano tune in my head. Halo Wars 2 makes a glorious return to a more classic art style. Concerning the gameplay, it clearly has a weaker campaign than its predecessor, while having one of the strongest narratives in years. And a multiplayer that'll keep you playing day after day and week after week. Halo Wars 2 isn't perfect, but it is a fun as hell game. Thank you to everyone for the enormous support lately. My channel has been growing more and more the last few weeks, and the future of this channel looks very bright. Thank you all, and until my next video, I hereby say goodbye.